Go ahead. Okay. So welcome everybody. This is kind of a different type of meeting than we've had in the past. This is kind of an informational session. We were approached by Professor Eakin about this project that they're working on out of the University of Wyoming in partnership with Calpine here in our area. So I'm just going to allow him to kind of introduce himself and the project and give us his information.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay, perfect. Oh, let me go back one more time. All right. So yes, my name is Daniel Aiken. I'm a senior research scientist at the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. I'll explain to you why some schmuck from University of Wyoming talking to you about a project going on in Oregon. I will get to that, so it'll be clear. But yes, as was introduced, I'm here to talk about the Basalt CarbonSAFE project. I know those are maybe a lot of words that don't really fit together quite yet, but I will fit them together and take you through our high-level objectives and kind of what it means for the city of Hermiston. So this is kind of a standard disclaimer. This research is funded under the Department of Energy, the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management. So we just would like to acknowledge their contribution in making this project a possibility. So now I'll get to the part as to why I'm here. So the CarbonSAFE program, which I will also clarify in a couple of slides, this is an initiative to explore carbon management opportunities all over the continental United States. It's been in place for since about 2016, and it's kind of built in a multiple phase way. So there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. This is very strategic. Carbon dioxide is a controlled medium by the underground injection control. And so therefore, these projects need to be vetted, and they are vetted in stages. And if they are not proven to be safe and de-risked in the appropriate way, they do not move forward to construction or injection. So these pre-phases in phase 1, 2, and 3, all this work is done to characterize the subsurface. There's zero injection going on. So we're just trying to learn about the subsurface, learn about the risks, and de-risk for future construction projects. So Wyoming has a strong history of these projects, and that's why we're up here helping entities like the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and Calpine investigate one of these projects for this area. We have multiple phase 2, phase 3 CarbonSAFEs in our state and are continuously working through those and advancing those towards commercialization. So that's why we're here. We find we have a specific expertise in this area. Wyoming is also an energy exporter. We export oil, natural gas, coal, and a lot of our natural gas finds its way up into the Pacific Northwest. So CO2 is a byproduct of burning those fossil fuels. So it's in our best interest to extend our expertise and help those areas that may not have that expertise in-house discover solutions to their carbon management issues. So the agenda for today is going to be very high level. I'm just going to go through what we're looking for in the subsurface and what this program is all about. And then I'll dive a little bit more into the HERO project specifically. So just starting at the 50,000-foot view, let's talk about types of carbon sequestration. So the planet Earth has its natural carbon cycle. It has natural uptakes and natural sinks for carbon. We have volcanism that produces CO2 into our atmosphere constantly. Our respiration produces CO2 into the atmosphere. Plant respiration produces CO2 in the atmosphere, but we also have these natural sinks. So that's photosynthesis. Plants also bring it in and store it. The rocks themselves can store a limited amount of carbon. And the oceans are one of the big reservoirs that extract carbon from our environment. There's technological carbon sequestration. So this is where we as humans put our technological spin on this. So we're advancing technologies like membrane capture, amine solvent capture, and direct air capture to actually pull CO2 out of the atmosphere and store it for later sequestration or use. And the last piece of that pie is that use. So geologic sequestration, you know, the process at which carbon dioxide is captured and then stored underground. These can be in a lot of environments, depleted oil and gas reservoirs, saline aquifers, which I'll get into a little bit, coal, shale, and in our case, specific to Hermiston, is basaltic rocks. So it's really these 2 points added together which equal a successful carbon sequestration project. So what are we looking for? As a geologist, I'm looking to find rocks that are appropriate to take CO2 in an area that is safe to do it. So we're looking for faulting and fracturing, natural pathways to the surface that if we did inject a material into that is buoyant relative to the formation waters, it can't find a way to find its way out. That's our whole purpose, is to de-risk this. So at a high level, we're looking for space. So is there enough space between grains of rock? So all rocks have something called porosity and permeability. Porosity is the spaces in between individual grains of rock. Permeability is the ability for fluid to transmit through, or the communication of those spaces in between the grains of rock. That allows for fluid to flow in and out of our otherwise solid-looking substance. So we're looking for adequate space, porosity, and permeability. Also, we're looking for containment. So in all of these projects, we have a layer that is our so-called reservoir that can take this material, and we have layers that seal these materials. So essentially the bottle cap on your bottle. So on this graphic, I'm not sure how to activate the mouse, but on the graphic to the right, the injection layers can be seen as those brown thinner layers towards the bottom, towards that 9,000 foot marker, and the cap rocks can be those gray impermeable layers sandwiched in between them. So really that's from a geologic perspective, those are the two of the main criteria we're looking for in the nature of the rocks that we're looking at. Also accessibility. So is there infrastructure and policy in place to inject and geologically monitor storage? This is difficult, especially in regions like the Pacific Northwest that may not have had a legacy kind of oil and gas or great legacy oil and gas footprint in the past. Places like Wyoming, it's no problem. We are producing almost from every basin in our own state. But here, to find these solutions, we need to kind of build these industries. And this is what this project is kind of the first stepping stone to figure out. So the minimum criteria for prospective geological storage formations, the sequestration targets cannot pose a risk to underground sources of drinking water. That is number one. There are very strict rules in the UIC program about the minimum salinity of a formation, and I'll go through that in the third point there. So and it also has to meet pressure and temperature requirements for safe injection. This is kind of dependent based off of what type of CO2 you're injecting. So if you're injecting something called supercritical CO2, where you are compressing a CO2 gas to essentially form a liquid, you need to find a threshold beneath the Earth's surface. It's usually around 3,000 feet, where the pressure and temperature will cause that supercritical fluid to maintain its equilibria at depth. This is a lot of very specific technical information, but I will give you some resources to follow up with either myself or do some investigation after this. Our injection targets, whenever we do locate those, like I said, they need to have good porosity and permeability. They need to be able to take the volumes of CO2 and store them safely. And again, to this point about total dissolved solids, that's a fancy way of saying the water needs to be really, really salty. So salty that we would never, ever consider using it for a type of drinking water or even agricultural water. The minimum criteria under UIC is 10,000 ppm. Potable water is between 50 and 500 ppm. So they've created a huge buffer for that. And one kind of fun fact is that the salinity of Gatorade is about 500 ppm. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. And again, target intervals, these injection intervals, they must have and have been proven to have a competent seal or a cap rock, something that is going to trap that and that we are confident will trap it forever. And then going along with that, minimal containment risks. So as we're doing our geologic characterization, we're looking for natural pathways to the surface. These are faults, fractures, even a water well that may penetrate our injection formation. We have to consider all of these pathways, de-risk them, and take care of them if they are a problem. If it is something like a previous well, mitigate those prior to any type of injection. Let's see. Oh, I ruined my own surprise. So if we look at the Pacific Northwest, the pink blobs you're going to see overlaying on the map, these are sedimentary basins. So carbon sequestration is going on right now, but a lot of it is limited to the Midwest, and it's because we have these huge sedimentary basins. Just think of these as bathtubs full of sediment that has great porosity, great permeability, very salty water. But you can see there's a few places on the map that don't have those great blobs of sediment, and namely the Pacific Northwest. So what do we do about our carbon management solutions in these areas? Well, we can look for an alternative type of rock, for one. And in our case, we're looking at basalts. So we are sitting on basalts right now. Basalts are stretching from here to down to about 5,000 feet beneath our feet right here. Go one more. So just to kind of get a little bit more granular look at that same picture, you're seeing all those same basins, but now we're going to talk about kind of the Oregon basins. So there are some small basins in the western part of the state, the Willamette Valley, Chehalem Valley, the Astoria Basin, and we are doing, and I say we, Oregon is doing gas injection right now. So the mist gas field is a really good example of this technology, which we are adopting from oil and gas and applying it to CO2. So the mist gas field is a natural gas storage facility where they basically take gas during the low usage times of the year and store it underground and wait for winter. And then as soon as that demand increases, they pump it back out of the ground and disperse it to power homes and industry. So this is the same technology that we would be using, slightly different type of injection permit, but it's the same technology. And in fact, gas CO2 injection for enhanced oil recovery has been around since the 1970s. This is exactly the technology that we're using. We're just using it to permanently sequester. We're not using the CO2 to drive oil and gas to boost productivity in an oil field, say. So the Northwest Oregon basins, which is where we're sitting, kind of the western, or yes, no, eastern, that should say eastern. There are basins, there are sedimentary basins here, but like I said, we've got these very thick columns of basalt, these basalt flows over the top. But we have kind of a double whammy of storage potential here. If we can prove out basaltic or mineralization storage with the basalts and these sub-basalt sediments, there's a huge storage potential that we could unlock for the Pacific Northwest. So in this area, the Grand Ronde basalt is the storage formation of our interest in our project. I'll show you a little bit more about what that is. And so just a little bit more about the potential of why basalts are potentially so powerful. So if we can unlock the storage potential, we can provide options to manage Scope 1 and Scope 3 emissions. So these are Scope 1 and 3 emissions are kind of the direct emissions from large emitters like power plants and things like that. And you can see from this image, it's very difficult to show without a pointer. It's almost impossible to show and describe, but you can see where Oregon and Washington are. And right on the border, we have some pretty big circles, and those are basically representing the magnitude of emissions. And so right here in Hermiston, the Calpine power plant does emit, something on the order of a couple of hundred tons, million metric tons per year. And so these are the types of things we're trying to offset. So the green colors there are the Columbia River basalts. And you can see each dot is an emitter of CO2. So if we could unlock this, we have a storage container right below our feet. The other options, if basalt is not proven, is to transport this stuff and build pipeline infrastructure all the way back to the Midwest. And that is potentially ridiculously expensive whenever you could capture it and just put it in the ground right next to where you're emitting it. So at this point in the US, there's very limited studies on basalts. There was a well that was drilled back in the early 2010s called the Wallula well. It was just up the road, just south of Richland, Washington. And they actually did drill a well and inject about 1,000 tons of CO2. And what they did is they drilled the well, they sampled the well prior to injection, and then they injected the CO2 and then sampled it a couple of years later. And that showed some really promising results, and I'll try and get you excited. As a geologist, I get excited about this stuff, but it's very difficult to pass that excitement on to other folks. But this is a very special area when we're talking about the mineralization potential for basalts. And why I will talk about that is because conventional injection into kind of sedimentary rocks, you are relying on the buoyancy force and a long-term chemical reaction of CO2 with water. So on the right side of the screen, you can see the trapping mechanisms through the life of CO2, or on the left side of the screen, I'm sorry, through the life of the CO2 after it's injected into sedimentary rocks. So first it's injected and you have to trap it structurally. So it's going to create this plume of CO2 in the subsurface that's mobile. It can be mobile. After that, those bubbles of CO2 will invade those pore spaces in that permeability space, and you'll have these bubbles of CO2 kind of hanging out in those areas. After that, those bubbles will start to dissolve into the formation waters there. And that process, if we move to the right hand, or the left-hand square of the right-hand figure, those are the mechanisms over time for CO2 in saline aquifers. So that can take hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands of years to occur. And that's what we're calling permanent. Now, one special thing at the very, very far end in that 10,000s and even goes into the hundreds of thousands of years, there's something called mineral trapping. This is where a special reaction occurs between CO2 and mafic minerals, specifically magnesium and a few other things, that will essentially turn the CO2 into a rock. And there is nothing more permanent than turning something into a rock. That's what we're talking about here in Hermiston. We can bypass all of those other steps and potentially maybe 1 or 2 years after we inject CO2, because of the nature of mafic rocks and the minerals that it has, we can instantaneously turn CO2 essentially into a carbonate rock. That is secure storage. That's the most secure you can get. So that farthest most right figure, that is that same timeline for mineralization, CO2 mineralization. And you can see we can mineralize CO2 on the orders of years and tens of years rather than thousands of years. So both of these are very secure ways of storing things. It's just that that green figure on the left-hand side, you've got a mobile plume of CO2. It's going to take a long time for that stuff to dissolve into the formation waters and truly become kind of a stable part of the system. Here, we can do that on a much shorter time span. And this is what we're investigating, is the commercial ability of to do that. Okay, so we have a little overview. That's about as high level as I can get. I'm happy to talk about this again, but we can discuss the HERO project. So this is a phase 2 CarbonSAFE, and really the goal of this project is to, it's a big science project. We're here to address research gaps that are critical to de-risking and demonstrating this basalt-hosted carbon storage. So what we're going to do is essentially look into the subsurface, take samples, and understand the nature of basalt storage beneath our feet. This award is 2 years long. We actually started this past August, and I'll give you a short timeline at the very end of where we stand now. But the CarbonSAFE program, and I kind of went into this earlier, so I won't belabor the point now. This is a DOE-funded program. Again, it's looking at a staged build out of a commercialization of a technology. So in our case, we're in phase 2, that storage complex and feasibility. The goal here is to extract as much data as possible from the subsurface to support either a yes or a no. That's pretty much it. There's no in between. It's either, can we support this technology here safely? If we can, we may investigate a phase 3. But again, even that phase 3 is more data gathering. We're put through a very rigorous process of de-risk with this program. Only in phase 4 do you actually ever construct anything, and that would be drilling injection wells. You're not even to injection by a phase 4. There's a lot that would happen between now and then. So our project partners, we're the prime award, we're the prime on the award. We're also looking at, well, we are working with Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. They're up in Richland, Washington. They have a huge history of basalt mineralization research. They are the best in the business at the modeling aspect and the commercial assessments. Our drilling operator is Oxy 1.5. So this is Occidental Petroleum's low carbon arm. They'll be doing all of our field, the actual drilling of the well, while SLB, formerly Schlumberger, will be providing all of the in-field tools that we're going to use to take measurements and samples of the rock beneath our feet. Our commercial partner is Calpine, and we will be hosting this well at the Calpine power plant here in Hermiston. We also have an international partner in CarbFix. They have been doing basalt mineralization in Iceland for a long time. They do it on a regular basis. It's a slightly different method, but they have drilled more basalt wells than a lot of people in the world. So they are really helping us understand how to best drill this well successfully and safely. So you all are probably
Professor
very
Egan.
familiar. Yeah.
Professor, sorry, we've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, I can wrap this up
Okay.
real quick. So this is just an aerial view of the site. I will not go into it, but the lower right-hand picture, that's our drilling parcel. We're right next to the Hermiston Power Project. We're siting in our well now, and hopefully we're going to get up and running here in a couple of months. So what does success look like? We're going to try and really characterize the full basalt column here in terms of its storage potential. So we're looking for those 3 main things. Do we have space? Do we have a cap? And what is the water like? Because we could hit fresh water all the way down, which would mean it was a no-go. But those are the things we really need to understand and de-risk for this to either move forward. And I do want to emphasize, no injection will occur during this project. We are purely going down, we'll sample, we'll close back up the well, we'll reclaim the surface, and that will be that. So these outcomes we're really trying to communicate to the next wave of projects. There are many of these projects popping up, especially recently, and our goal is just to provide. We're the first stepping stone for the rest of the projects in this region. So we are here to learn things and communicate that with some of these other projects in the region. So again, here are some of our kind of high-level goals. We're here to refine the characterization methodology for the next wave of projects, de-risk field operations so we can do it the right way the next time. Not that we're not going to do it the right way, but we'll learn some things along the way that we can send to the next people that may be working in the region doing some of the same research. And really our primary goal is the assessment of the regulatory requirements with respect to salinity and porosity permeability so that we can keep moving forward with this project, hopefully into a phase 3. So where do we stand now? I can make this my last slide. As I said, we kicked off in August of last year. We've submitted our stratigraphic well permit to the Oregon Department of Geology and Mineral Industries. It has made it through completeness review, and it's going to be in its 45-day comment period coming up, after which we hope it's approved very quickly. We're still refining our sampling analysis and our logistics, but we have started our materials procurement for drilling, and we have identified a rig in Northern California that we'll probably use. So at this point, site construction, just preparing the well pad, should begin. We will not start that until our permit is approved, and that's just pending Dogami's approval timelines. But we are hoping for a notional spud date or kind of break ground date at or near September 1st. And I'll leave it there. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I know I've got a metric ton of questions, but we only have a few moments. So
Sure.
Anybody have any short questions to ask? Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It was very hard to design a presentation to squeeze all of this into 30 minutes, but
yeah. What I would suggest is, if possible, can we get an email address so that, if we have some questions that we can
Absolutely.
forward those questions on to you, and then we can share them amongst ourselves.
Sure.
So that, maybe somebody thought of something that somebody else didn't.
absolutely. And I'll also leave names for folks at Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, our partners there, as well as Rory DeSterat at the Department of Oregon Geologic and Mineral Industries at Dogami. He's also happy to answer any of these questions. He actually also has a drilling campaign funded by the governor that will be doing some slim holes in the area that will tie nicely into our project. So he told me to provide his information as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. That's like you said, it's a lot of information packed into a very small package. So we appreciate your brevity on it, and we're look forward to seeing more in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so in 2 minutes or so, we've got our city council work session. So